we looked at adaptive grids and the various equations, very basic concepts associated with adaptive grids. Okay, how to derivatives. Okay, in the computational plane and physical plane we have seen. Okay, and then we also looked at some metrics. How are they calculated using central differences for this case? Okay. So after that we saw the example.
Sir, sharing the screen,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, whatever I've. Yeah. We saw the adaptive grid example. Are you able to see the screen now, Sanjay?
Yes.
Okay. So adaptive grid example we have seen yesterday. Then followed by unstructured meshes with some very basic rudimentary ideas of unstructured meshes with some example how the unstructured grid or mesh will look like in 2D and 3D. Okay. Now let's go to the next thing in the agenda. We look at some explicit techniques. Okay. Earlier I have given an assignment, if you remember. That assignment is a good example for an explicit technique. Okay. There are other things called implicit techniques. We'll look at the differences between two. And first we'll look at some explicit techniques. Then later on, we'll look at a few implicit techniques also. What is explicit and implicit we need to know. In an explicit approach, each difference equation, which means finite difference equation, FDE, contains only one unknown and therefore can be solved explicitly for the unknown in a straightforward manner. For example, in the assignment problem which you were given for the Laplace equation, the left hand side contain only phi of ij at time n plus 1. Okay. Now on the right hand side, if you see the first expression, it had all the spatial variables, but only at phi at n, which are known already. So right hand side you have all known quantities. You can compute the left hand side without much of a problem. So such things are known as explicit techniques. So this is what is explained here. The difference equation contains only one unknown on the left hand side. On the right hand side, all others are knowns or known variables. So you can straightforward manner you can solve it. But the implicit approach is one where the unknowns must be obtained by means of a simultaneous solution of difference equation applied at all grid points earlier at a given time level. For example, the same thing if I say phi I comma j at n plus 1 needs the value of phi I comma j plus 1 at time n plus 1 on the right hand side, which is not known now. You will know when you solve the next j. Okay. Now for that you will need j plus 2, which you need to know for the next j after that, and so on and so forth. So finally you will see that everything is coupled. You have to solve them together. To give an example, I have x plus y is 2, y plus, but then only one equation. Now I want to solve for y. The next equation say y plus z is equal to 3. Okay, then I need one more equation. So z plus w is equal to 4, next equation. Then for w you may have one more equation, and so on and so forth, until finally you will get an equation that say r is 2. So then substituting back you will get all the expressions. So this is an example of coupled equations where it may be good to use the implicit approach. You have to solve all the equations simultaneously. By x plus y, I gave you a very simple thing. I already gave you a very tridiagonalized matrix. In general, It can be more complicated than that. Okay. So you have to simultaneously solve all these equations to get the unknowns at the next time step. That is the problem with implicit approach. You can use this using matrix inversion. Simultaneous equation, you can use Cramer's rule, or you can use matrix inversion, or some tricks you can use. Okay. So we'll look at explicit approach first. So the first heat conduction equation, we know, we have already seen this already earlier. First order in time and second order in space, the accuracy of this FDE. So the PD is given on the leftmost side is equal to 0. Then right hand side is FTE. Forward in time, n plus 1 minus n by delta t at the point I. Then central in space for the second derivative. This is Ti plus 1 at n minus 2 Ti at n plus Ti minus 1 at time step n by delta x whole square into alpha. So the error terms will be order of delta t and order of delta x whole square. Now if you solve for Ti minus 1, for example, put it equal to 0, T at n plus 1 you take to the other side, everything else is on the right hand side, you will get this expression. Okay. Now this is very simple. If I want to know the Ti at n plus 1th time step, I will take the known values at n time step. In n time step I would have known the values of T at I minus 1 and I plus 1. Okay. So this is an explicit approach where you know all the variables on the right hand side. But for implicit approach, we suppose for the spatial derivative, which means, the second order derivative, we take all terms to be the average of n and n plus 1. Okay. For example, the dou square t by dou x squared is evaluated at the time n and again at the time n plus 1, and then the average is taken. Average of this is taken. Okay. If you write your FDE like that, you will get this expression. See, Ti plus 1 at n minus 2 Ti at n plus Ti minus 1 at n, okay, plus the same thing at n plus 1. Ti plus 1 at n plus 1 minus 2 Ti at n plus 1 plus Ti minus 1 at n plus 1. Average is the whole divided by 2. So half is coming in the numerator. You do it like this. Then on the left hand side, if you again simplify, take the Ti at n plus 1 at the left hand side. What will happen? On the right hand side, the Ti at n plus 1, you can take it to the left hand side again. But you will have Ti plus 1 at n plus 1, Ti minus 1 at n plus 1, which you wouldn't know when solving for this Ti at n plus 1. Even if you take this to the left hand side, the right hand side will still contain terms in the n plus 1 time step. So without knowing them, you cannot substitute on the right hand side. So what should you do? You have to go to the next I, say I plus 1, write the same equation. I plus 2, write the same equation. I plus 3, write it, and so on until the boundary. Now these are all connected, okay? Because this will have Ti plus 1, the next one will have Ti plus 2, and this, instead of this I minus 1, it will have I. So they will all be connected. Solve all these equations simultaneously. You will get the solution for Ti n plus 1, Ti plus 1 n plus 1, T minus 1 n plus 1, and so on for all the T's simultaneously. If you solve it, you will know all the unknowns. Then you will know all these values at Ti n plus 1. So this approach is an implicit approach, where you have to use the, possibly matrix inversion to solve the system of equations. The other ways to solve systems of equations, but matrix approach and matrix inversion is very commonly employed. Kramer's rule is not deployed here because of a large number of unknowns. Now we look at the advantages and disadvantages of explicit approach and implicit approach. So the advantage of explicit approach is that it is relatively easy to set up and program. They have given us easy assignment. Okay. However, stability constraints like the CFL condition may sometimes require a time step to be very small. So you can see if you vary that omega in your assignment, if omega is larger than a certain value, the solution does not converge. It may blow up or oscillate. Okay. In some cases, you may have to reduce the omega. So which is similar to telling here that the time step has to be very small. Or you have to do more number of time steps for the same. If you want the solution for 1 second, 0 to 1 second, I want all the way in which the flow behaves. So if you take 10 divisions, each time step is 0.1. That may not be enough. You may have to take 0.01. 100 divisions you may have to take. Even that may not be enough. Take it for 0.001. So to get this solution, you have to do 1000 time steps. That may be a problem with explicit approach. But it is easy, conceptually very easy to understand and program. So the advantage of implicit approach now is the stability can be maintained over much larger values of time steps. So time step can be larger. The scheme will still be stable. Not that it will be stable for all time steps, but they can be much larger than those for explicit time steps. But the time taken per time step can be much larger than explicit approach because massive matrix manipulations are involved. Imagine inverting a matrix. Okay, you have to find the cofactor and adjoint matrix of each and every element. Okay, and if you want to evaluate the adjoint matrix, then that will be one order less. You have to evaluate one more matrix. You keep on doing it until you get the what you want. It will be a huge number of computations. You try solving a 4 by 4 equation by inverting a matrix, you will understand what I mean. 3 by 3 will not be so difficult. You are already really used to it. Try solving 4 by 4 matrix or 5 by 5 matrix by hand and try to invert it. Okay. Then you will see that what I mean. A computer also will encounter the same difficulty. No, further implicit methods are more complicated to set up and program than explicit methods. Okay, especially the boundaries, you may have to do some sacrifice. This is more straightforward known in explicit approaches, but it is a little bit dicey with the implicit approach. Again, there are some useful implicit approaches which we will see later, because for some kind of PDEs, the implicit approaches work very well. Explicit approaches may not work. So sometimes you have to follow the implicit approach if you are forced to do it. So both are important, but you should know the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches. Now let's look at the stability of explicit methods. Any doubts so far? Any doubts? Naresh, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Aditya, no doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the stability now. Now we'll look a little bit more into stability. We just very informally define what is stability. Suppose the solution converges, it is stable. If it does not converge, it is not stable. Okay. We also saw earlier that the error should decrease with iteration. Only then it can be stable. If error increases with stability with iteration, it's unstable. Okay. So we will make use of these two simple facts to derive some very interesting relationships for some simple equations. You may not be able to do this for each and every FDE you do for your equation, but if you do for simple expressions, simple equations, you'll at least get an idea of the tendencies and characteristics of this error. When you go to unknown area, you can keep this in mind. And if you want to tune something, this knowledge will be very helpful. You will appreciate what I am telling when we go further in this regard. So consider the FTCS scheme. FT means forward in time. CS means central in space. So dou of capital T by dou small t is forward in time. You use that kind of FDE, as you can see in the left hand side in the last equation in this slide. Forward in time. Right hand side is central in space for the second derivative in space. So alpha into this one. Same equation which we did earlier. Okay. So this is the explicit scheme. So on the now let's revisit and get some things clear now. We can't do anything about discretization error. Okay, this order of delta t and order of delta x whole squared, that we can reduce only by reducing delta t and reducing delta x. That is the only way you can reduce that error. But what about the round off error? Okay. So let's say now we say that we have converted PDE to FDE. Already there is an error there, which is of the order of delta t and delta x shown here. Okay. See like this. Look at the first one. If you convert the PDE to FDE, you get this error, order of delta t and order of delta x squared. We live with that. We say, okay, I understand I am committing this error. At least give me an exact solution of this FDE. That's what we need. We have reduced our demand now. Okay. So we want at least an exact solution to this FDE. Even this, your round off error is eating into it and create problems. This is what we want to see. Whether if there is a round off error, okay, how will it behave? Will it become extra? Will it get amplified or it will get dissipated? Let's see that now. So you remember we are away from PDE. We are looking at the exact solution to this FDE. So when we look at the exact solution to this FDE, so this is known as capital D. Capital A is analytical solution of the PDE, that is A. And capital N is a numerical solution from a real computer with finite accuracy. So there is a difference between D and N. N plus or minus that error will give you exact solution D. It's very important to understand this. Aditya, is it okay? Aditya? Aishwarya?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
It's fine. Okay. So now the discretization error we see this analytical solution of PDE minus the FDE exact solution, absolute exact solution of the FDE. That error we say we are living with it. If you want to reduce, you reduce delta t or delta x. Now round off error, we call this by this word E or epsilon. For convenience, we denote it by small epsilon notation. That is numerical solution from the computer with the error minus the exact solution. So n minus d will be we define it as the error. Let's say n is d plus e. That is n with the numerical solution get will be the exact solution of the difference equation plus the round off error due to the computer. Okay. So n is d plus e. So now the exact solution, instead of n's, we'll get d plus epsilon as n, which is a numerical one. If you write the equation with this, instead of t you put, it is actually n. N is what you get finally with the computer. So n is d plus e, d plus epsilon. So you get on the left hand side, substitute everywhere with d plus epsilon for n. N is the numerical solution of t at every point. So you will get this equation finally. Now d, as we know, d is the exact solution of the difference equation. So it should satisfy this difference equation exactly. So left hand side is equal to right hand side. You can cancel off this d. That's what is done here. Since d satisfies the FD exactly, you can cancel off all the d here. What remains will be only the error. You see that exactly satisfy the FD. We have a finite difference equation. Very important concept to remember. The error also will be satisfying this equation exactly. Okay. So just to give you a pictorial representation, let error be on y-axis and in the spatial domain on the x-axis, how does this error look like? It's minus L by 2 to plus L by 2, where L is the length of the domain, let's say, one-dimensional domain. So the error can be very jagged like this. Okay. When you get funny functions like this, what do you do to represent? Sanjay, Raghavendra. Sanjay. Usually, when you get complex, I don't mean it, complicated functions, okay, like this, we want to represent, well, do you fall back?
We approximate them as some bound functions.
Yeah, Fourier series.
Yes, the Fourier series.
What did you say? What functions? Smooth functions? No.
Known functions. Say this
Yeah. So, approximate by infinite Fourier series and you truncate somewhere. Yes. You say this much accuracy is enough. You would have done that in aerodynamics. And where else have you done it?
We had Fourier
transforms.
Yes,
please.
Yeah, separate subject.
Yeah, but where have you applied it? Dynamics you would have seen. In airfoil theory, you would have applied it. Okay?
Yes.
Where else in aerodynamics or in aerospace?
Also in general distribution of circulation, we have in lifting.
General distribution of circulation. Oh, that is again in aerodynamics. Yeah, okay. Any other subject? In structures or your flight dynamics. I'm not sure. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Vibrations, we have applied it, sir.
Vibrations, yes. Okay. Okay.
in one numerical scheme.
Yes. So that's it. It has one more applications here, but we apply it a little bit differently. Let's see how to apply this. Now recall that the stability criterion is just for stability n plus 1th time step by direct n time step. Instead of time step, you can also call iteration. If you call iteration, it becomes, we can still apply the same stability criteria. When you solve steady state problems without the dou by dou t term, this applies to iterations. Okay, that's why the term n is used instead of t. So the error, modulus of error compared to the previous time step should decrease with time, which means when you divide it, should be less than or equal to 1. Easy to understand, the first step. Okay. Now the previous page, the error with x, if you express as a Fourier series, not okay, you forget whether it is sine or cos. Generally take e power I theta, where theta is k into x. Km again is some frequency, let's say. Okay, Km is some frequency, and Am is the amplitude of that particular term in Fourier series. So error, if you express that as sigma of m from 1 to infinity of Am into e power I power kmx, it's a combination of both the cosine series and sine series. The sine will have the imaginary part. Okay. Now the error, we can take it as the real part. The real part of this can be taken as error, which means you are taking only the cosine series. But then let's assume that error is this. Now e power I kmx is nothing but e power I theta is what? Cos theta plus I sin theta. Okay. Hope you remember complex variables. Did you have complex variables in your first year? Or it was assumed that you knew
Yes,
everything by
we
12th
didn't have
standard?
the
Huh?
complex analysis course.
You did
We
have.
didn't, course, no.
We didn't have. Anyway, 11th and 12th you might have known, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, 11th and 12th.
So if you have doubts, you ask right now, because some might have forgotten this. So I'm just, remember e power I theta is cos theta plus I sin theta, and theta is expressed as k into x here, km into x. So m means there are so many terms there, 1 to infinity. We are taking only one term of that, a representative term, m. Then that term can be expressed as e power I kmx is cos kmx plus I sin kmx, or cos theta plus I sin theta. The theta is km into x. Now km is known as the wave number. Km is known as wave number. So if lambda is the wavelength, okay, and y is represented as sine of 2 pi x by lambda. Okay, what is km? By comparison, km should be 2 pi by lambda. So m is actually probably number of waves within 2 pi. Okay, so km, that was given here. Km is 2 pi by lambda. See here, you have e power I kmx is, here you have sine of 2 pi x by lambda. By comparison, km is equal to 2 pi by lambda. Km is known as wave number. How many waves are there within 2 pi? So here, number of waves is 1. Km is equal to 1. In general, if you want to convert this L into 2 pi. If you have Km is equal to 1, there will be one wave. If you have Km is equal to 2, you will have twice this value. You will have two waves in that 2 pi. Okay, two waves. So it's called wave number. How many waves are there in the interval 2 pi? So for m, you can put 1, 2, 3, etc. 2 pi by L into m will be Km. Okay. So now assume there are m waves in a grid which has n plus 1 grid points. Let's give a value for n, let's say 100. Okay. Now for the 100 grid points, what is the smallest number of waves, or how many waves can you represent just with numbers? You have 100 numbers. Using that, what is the maximum Km you can have? See, look at this figure. The largest wave will have Km is equal to 1, from minus L by 2 to plus L by 2. Okay. Now, if it has n plus 1 points, the number of divisions there will be L by n. Because if you have 2 points, you have one division. If you have 3 points, you have 2 divisions. If you have 4 points, you have 3 divisions, and so on. If you have n plus 1 points, you will have n divisions. So delta x will be L by n. N is the number of divisions. So number of points will be n plus 1. Okay. Now the minimum lambda, which is is going down like this, I minus 1 to I plus 1. The minimum lambda you will have is 2 delta x, 2 times delta x. Okay. And this is the maximum lambda you have, where k is 1. Now we want to have, with the given grid, what is the maximum m you can go, or what is the the highest frequency wave you can get from this grid. You can draw on this grid, in other words. So lambda max is L, lambda minimum, this minimum is 2L by n, delta x is 2L by n. Okay, because this L is equal to the whole length for the largest wave. For the smallest wave, we have L is 2x, 2 delta x. So lambda m is, the delta x is L by n, so 2L by n. Now Km, m is the maximum value of m you can have within this grid. If it is continuous, you can keep on reducing the wave and the series can go up to infinity. Okay, but here you have a number, you have to stop within a certain number. You cannot have waves which are smaller than that. This is assuming that errors propagate as a sum of these waves. Okay, I can just, I'm going back here and checking. This inherently assumes that errors propagate as a sum of these waves. So the largest one, k is equal to 1, is shown here, and the smallest one possible on this grid is the smallest wave given by this. So for this wave, what is the Km? That is calculated here. It is 2 pi by lambda. Lambda is 2L by n. So you will get 2 pi by L into n by 2. Okay. Is it clear? So the 2 may cancel. You can say pi n by n also. Is it clear so far? Who gave the presentation today? Ashwin Kumar. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So why are we going for this small wave? Why do you calculate the small wavelength or k?
Sir?
Why are you calculating this Km for this small wave?
So then we can do it for the larger one, sir, by calculating
No,
this.
wait. What I'm telling is, what is Fourier series? You have sigma m is equal to 1 to infinity, right?
Yes, sir.
But practically we have only a certain number of grid points, 100 or 1000 or 10,000 or something.
Yes, sir.
If you divide it into 100 points, you want to say what is the smallest wave you can put there. So in this sigma, suppose m you are getting as 25. It is
Okay,
pointless to go more than 25 with this grid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you go for 26 and 27, such errors will not be captured by this grid at all. Okay, so you'll get an idea of the smallest possible wave with this grid. So the maximum Km, where you can stop to represent this error, you will know. You understand?
Yes, sir. So it is
For
like
example,
the
you get Km equal to
lowest.
20. This is
I mean, it is like the lowest, sir.
the lowest wavelength
Yes, sir. So that we
or highest
can,
frequency. Yeah.
yes, we can use it for the total thing.
So you know how many terms you can stop. M will tell you where you can stop. If it is 10, then only 10 terms will be there here.
Yes, sir.
With 20, you can have 20 terms. It's pointless to have more than 20, although the series is up to infinity.
Yes, sir.
So you represent the error as closely as possible with the given
Number of terms.
number of points.
Yes, sir.
If you have more points, you can represent the error more closely,
Yes,
in
sir.
a better fashion. That's all. Okay?
Okay, sir.
5 minutes more. I don't know whether we'll be able to complete the next one in 5 minutes. It's too long. It will involve, some scary things like this. So we'll better move over to next class. Okay? Look at it in the next class or Saturday if you want to have class. We missed a class today in this week, no? Monday, first hour. Yes, Sanjay?
Yes, sir.
So we'll make it up on Saturday, fourth hour.
Yeah, okay, sir. Sure.
Okay. This Saturday is working or leave, holiday? Did you check your current
Sir, I'm
calendar?
not sure. I'll just check it, sir.
I'll check now, yeah. Yeah, you also check. Let's see who gets it
Yes,
first.
sir.
Working, sir.
Working day, fine. So we'll have the makeup class then. Thanks. Okay. So I'll take the attendance and leave you.
Sir, arrow design, right? Fourth.